Hey, what are you doing? Okay, so I have the car back in the shop. I've been driving it around for a few days and it's driving well. It's doing pretty good. It does need a few things though that I mentioned that the tuner said I need to do. So to fix it, I have got a couple things here. Got new spark plug wires with 45-degree boots, so hopefully that'll help with the putting them on the plugs with the GT40 heads because it's so tight with those headers. And then I've got a brand name HBC Pro boost controller. So gotta put that on, gotta put those on, and then I'm still waiting on a couple other pieces and I need to work on a couple other things. So just getting a few things done, and once I get these two things and a couple other things done, the car's ready to go back to the dyno to make its final power number. So that's pretty cool, and it's nice that I just have relatively easy things to do. So also I noticed that both the radiator and the reservoir were low on fluid, so I'm topping those off. I guess it just burped up some air. What do you think about that? We must not have bled it right the first time. Come to think of it, I didn't surge, I didn't like give it gas and stuff to bleed all the air bubbles out. I just let it idle, so I think it just burped up some bubbles, which led to it not cooling super well. When you were driving it was fine, but if you were like sitting in town like at a light or something, it would get a little warm, so I expect that is what it needed. So I'm gonna fill that up, top it off, and then get that about half full. So when it does expand, it will piss out some extra fluid, but I built that rod in the middle that'll just drop it out the bottom, so it won't be any big deal. Okay, so for spark plug wires, these ones are pretty accessible. Not much difficult getting to those, other than the fact that the headers are kind of tight, but you can access them with your hands. But the ones on this side, unfortunately, are beneath both the intake pipe and the exhaust coming back from the turbo, so I got to take both of those off. Intake comes off pretty easy. The exhaust isn't difficult. You just have to take out the O2 sensor, and then you have to actually jack the car up so that you can take the back part of the exhaust off and then wiggle the exhaust out. Not a huge deal, but just, gotta do it. So the intake pipe needs to come off anyways because I need to do something with it as well, so not a big deal. Alright, just got done fitting the wires on the passenger side, and these fit so much better than the other ones. Plenty of clearance, except for that one, which there is still clearance. Can't really see it, but I definitely will put the thermal sleeves back on them. But yeah, the clearance is good. Clearance is really good, actually. So that's nice, and they all clicked in well. So some of the ones that came off didn't feel like they were clicked in so well, and it's just kind of hard to tell, and they were just junk. So I think that was definitely contributing to the misfire that we were experiencing on the dyno. So it's good to have these new plugs on, and now I'm going to do the other side. Alright, got the ones on this side in. That was super duper easy. No issues, really. Those don't have that bad of clearance issues. I'll probably go ahead and throw the thermal things on them just because I have them, but I don't expect any problems. They all clicked in nice, and even some of the ones on this side were kind of loose. Like whenever I had to change the plugs at the dyno, I was pulling the wires off, and some of them like came apart. I'll show you what I mean. Some of them came apart like this metal thing actually came off of the wire. So I was just doing the best I could with what I had, trying to crimp them back together and stuff, but I imagine that something along the road there was not connected well and contributed to my misfire. So I feel real good about these new plugs. Throw the thermal sleeves on them and be done. I have some heat wrap to go on this, and then I need to make an extension that will go to the intake manifold so I can get the pipe off the turbo there. Still waiting on that heat wrap to come in, but it should be in soon. And now I have this boost controller to put in. This Hallman boost controller. That's the word I was looking for. So it's supposed to be a good unit. It's the one that the guy recommended. So I'm gonna put that in and leave it on 0 and leave the boost turning up to him. So that'll be good. Alright, so did a little bit of reading on where the boost controller is supposed to go, and it's real simple. It just goes in the line that's going from the manifold, or in my case the vacuum tree, to the wastegate. So you just got to make sure you have the right port going the right way, because it only goes one way. and I've got it turned all the way down because I'm going to leave it to the tuner to turn it up. So boost controller's in and zip tied down and ready to go. I may move it some other place in the future, but for now it's going to sit right there. Pretty accessible and out of the way. And I also put the thermal sleeves back on the plug wires, so that's all good to go. And I did get my extension and the heat wrap for the intake pipe, so I'm going to put those on and put that up. But before I can do that, I need to put the exhaust on this side. Okay, so we got the exhaust put on, or what little of an exhaust there is, and now I'm working on connecting the intake up here. Got the pipe right here heat wrapped where it goes by the turbo, and got it tightened down in there where the math is. And now I just need to tighten this clamp. And then there was this problem where this doesn't reach, so I just had it kind of stretched over, but that's the reason that this was touching the turbo. So now I actually got it off a little bit, got it wrapped, and then I made this little extension here and got this coupler to bridge this gap right here, a couple of clamps to go with that. And this coupler I actually had to shave down so that it'll hopefully fit here. That should work. But yeah, it was longer. I had to cut this piece of it off. And that stuff's pretty thick for a $5 eBay coupler. Pretty impressed. So anyways, gotta throw that on, and then pretty much gonna be ready to go. Gonna check the oil and put the rear bumper back on, because this thing has a date to go back to the dyno and finish its tune. Alright, with the help of my little helper here, we got the shifter on, tightened down, ready to go. And now I'm just gonna throw the rear bumper, or crash bumper, and bumper cover back on, and this thing will be ready to go back to the dyno. What do you think? I think she likes it. I appreciate your help there. Alright, got the crash bumper on with the help of my assistant here. Thank you for your help. Thank you. Thank you. Alright, got the rear bumper and bumper cover back on. Got the car packed down with tools and things that I might need at the dyno, so this thing is ready to go. Oh, just forgot one thing. This special socket for getting the corner plug out. This corner plug on these heads is like impossible to get out with a normal socket, so I made this special one to get it. I had to shave it down so it fits in. I'm gonna bring that just in case, because I needed that last time I didn't have it. Hopefully I won't need it this time, but you know, I'd rather need something and not have it than vice versa. So the car's packed up, ready to go back to the dyno and make its final power figure. So I'm pretty stoked. She made 380 something last time, 382 or something like that. We'll see what she makes, and yeah, wish me luck. Alright, so it's the morning of the day of the final tune for this car. I'm doing a little bit of last minute stuff because O'Reilly's couldn't get the parts in until this morning, but basically I'm just putting a new idle air control valve in because the idle's junk, and I'm also putting O2 sensors because I didn't have them previously. I think it'll help the idle, and I don't know if it'll help it run better or not, but anyways, I've already pulled the plugs off that I had for the O2 sensors. That one's easy to get to. This one over here I have to jack the car up to get to it, but I've got like 30 minutes to do it, so I'm gonna hop to it, and everything else is ready on the car, so I'm gonna throw this stuff on and get headed out. Alright, got the new idle air control valve in and got the O2 sensors in. You won't be able to see this one, but there's that one right there below the oil filter. So this baby's all ready. Just make sure that all these wires are tied up. They're not gonna get too hot. Get over there. Here. That one's a little close to the exhaust. Alright, that should work. So, here we go. Alright, so now it's actually the next day, and yesterday we were just so busy, and from a filming standpoint, it was kind of the same stuff that you guys have already seen from the first time that we went to the tuner. So I didn't really film anything, but I'm going to tell you how it went down. So basically, we went to the tuner, which is about an hour and a half away from here, and instead of trailering the car, because it's tuned, I went ahead and drove it there, and it drove great. Had no problems at all, other than one tiny problem, but I'll get to that in a minute. So the car drove great, it made it there, no overheating,
and then the guy tuned it. I successfully had fixed the misfire and everything else, and it went great. The car made 430 horsepower before it ran out of fuel. So basically, all I would need to do to make more power would be to get a bigger fuel pump and bigger injectors. Right now, I have a Walbro 255 and 42-pound injectors. So next time, I'll probably go with a 400 or 450 pump and then 60-pound injectors. But for the meantime, 430 horsepower is actually a little bit above that. I don't remember the exact number, but I can definitely live with that. It's so good. And so I'm happy with it. I mean, I'm thrilled. And then the car drove home after taking a beating on the dyno. The car drove all the way home, no problem, didn't overheat. The one small problem that I mentioned was that we had to jump it off a lot. It started by itself a lot, but we also had to jump it off a lot. And I'll show you why. So when I did the battery relocation, I just used this extra sub wire that I had, and it's, I don't know if it's 4 gauge or 2 gauge. I think it's 2, but whatever it is, it's not thick enough. And so it wasn't allowing the voltage from the battery, which is in the back, to get all the way to the starter up here. So it was starting some and not starting some. That was a big pain, but you know, it is what it is. We were able to jump it off. I brought a jump pack, so I was prepared. So it really wasn't a big deal, but you know, going forward, I need to fix that so I can daily this car. I mean, I don't know how much I'll daily it, but I do want to drive it a lot. So among the I need to get a double O gauge wire so that I can keep the battery in the trunk. I'll probably just put the battery up here for now so that I don't have any issues, but I'll get a double O gauge wire so I can keep the battery in the trunk and not have issues with starting. And then it needs a few other things. One of them being, on the night before going to the dyno, the window motor broke and I wasn't able to roll down this window, and the guy needs to be able to roll it down at the dyno. So literally I just tore this door card off, and you can just push down this window because he's got to be able to put wires and things like that for the dyno through the window. So that was my solution there. The door card's over there, so I'll fix that sometime. It's nice to have power windows, so I'll probably just order another window motor. They're cheap. I've actually fixed this one on this side before. That one's never broken, so I don't know what's up with this side, but not a huge deal. I can get another one of those. It's easy to fix. But yeah, other than those things, the car made really good power. It feels great. It feels like a rocket ship, but I've never had anything that fast before, and it's pretty light too. So, and I built it with my own 2 hands, so that makes it feel extra good to drive. You know, it always feels good to drive something that you build yourself. So yeah, super happy with it. And at this point, the car is tuned and it's home, and you know, it's registered and legal. So at this point, I'm gonna say it's project complete. The heads, cam, intake, and turbo and everything tuned. I mean, it's done. The car is drivable. It makes a lot of power, and I'm super happy with it. So that being said, that's the end of this series, but I'm not done working on the car. Like I said, there's all those things I gotta do, and then I have more stuff planned. I don't know if you can tell on video, but the clear coat is really bad. I mean, it's super bad, like it's just uneven and stuff. I actually painted the car myself, and if I say so myself, I did a pretty good job on the base coat, but the clear, I didn't know you're supposed to go a lot slower, so it's kind of rough and patchy. So I need to sand it down and redo the clear sometime, which is fine because I added these since I painted it, and I want those to be the body color, so I'll go ahead and paint those too. I probably will make a diffuser for the back too. And of course I need to put the front one back on the front, and I'll probably end up making one out of aluminum instead of the current one. So just some small things here and there. I need to trim underneath these a little bit more. These back tires rub a little bit on the material that's left, and there's like some material left like this, so I can trim closer up so that these don't rub. And they only rub in really big bumps, but you know, just something that I want to do. So definitely not through working on the car, but that is the end of this series. So I really appreciate you guys watching, and feel free to hit me up with any questions. I'm really not the most knowledgeable person about this kind of stuff, but I know it's a lot to figure out and whatnot if you don't know much about, you know, V8s like I did when I started this. So feel free to hit me up with any questions or anything like that. The guy that tuned the car, his name was Andy, and he's out of Fort Worth, and his company is called Prime Tuning, and he did such a good job. I'd highly recommend him. He doesn't even know that I'm making this. He didn't pay me or tell me or anything to say anything. So I'm just shouting him out because he did such a good job. So if you're building, I think he does V8 cars only. Don't quote me on that, but he doesn't do like imports or anything. I think it's V8s only. So if you're building a car like that, I would highly suggest bringing in the car. He's super reasonable on price, super knowledgeable, and super just easy to get along with. You know, there was a lot of problems on the first day that we went to the dyno, and he was just super patient and really helpful with figuring out what was wrong with the car. So highly recommend him. Andy with Prime Tuning, check him out. And yeah, stay tuned for more builds. I am of course going to keep working on this, but my next build is going to be something with 4 wheels, but it's not going to be a car. So I think it's going to be pretty sweet. I think you guys will like it, so stay tuned and it's going to be sick.